Thanks for being here. You heard the president there saying that this wasn't a campaign violation. What about that argument that he and his people are now making?
Well, I think he's more correct than his critics are. It's a close question. It's complicated. The law is clear that a president may contribute to his own campaign. So if the president had paid $280,000 to these two women, even if he had done so in order to help his campaign, that would be no problem. That's legal. And if Cohen himself made the contribution, that would be unlawful because he has a limit of $5,200. So the complicated issue is, what if Trump told him to do it, as Cohen says? Then Cohen would be acting for Trump as Trump's representative, and the campaign contribution would be lawful as long as the president ultimately paid for it. If it was just an advance on what he was going to pay, that would be completely lawful. So the prosecutor's a little bit in a catch-22. If he believes Cohen that the president directed him to do it, then it's not a crime at all. If he doesn't believe Cohen, then Cohen has committed a crime, but not the president. And the legal pundits who are saying that if Cohen admits to a crime, that makes Trump an unindicted co-conspirator are just wrong as a matter of basic criminal law. You don't become an unindicted co-conspirator if your action is lawful, even though the action of the other person is unlawful.
Why then would Cohen plead guilty to this violation in the prosecutor's
This was an add-on. This was an add-on. They had in dead to rights on the medallions, on the taxes. They threw this in, not a very strong case, they threw it in order to give him an opportunity to say something negative about Donald Trump. Look, they're not interested in Cohen, they're interested in Trump. Judge Ellis said that, obviously, in the Manafort case. And so they threw in the campaign contribution law in order to find a connection to Trump. Medallions have no connection to Trump. Taxes have no connection to Trump. This is the only alleged crime that has a connection to Trump.
All right, I want to ask you, as you know, there are other legal folks who see it differently. They see this as an action that was just before a presidential election that potentially could swing a presidential election. Here's the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General on this very point.
Okay.
That makes it seem ministerial. It's the exact opposite, and it's what really gives rise to the sort of Watergate comparisons. What Cohen says in court, and by the way, it's not in the information, he made a point of saying it, is not only that it was at the direction of Trump, but it was for the purpose of influencing the election. That gets down the middle in the bullseye of high crime and misdemeanor land, especially given how excruciatingly close the election was. It's quite like what the Watergate burglars did, except Nixon was up 25 points against McGovern. It's a serious corruption of governmental function and of the election.
Your thoughts on that?
It's not even a close question. That is so over the top. It's just not a crime to contribute to your own campaign. If he had written a letter to these two women saying, you're going to hurt me in my campaign, I'm going to pay you $150,000, $130,000 to help me get elected president, and you have to keep it quiet. It's hush money. No crime. I challenge any of those who are saying it's a crime to find me anything in the criminal law that would make it a crime for a president personally or a candidate personally to pay in order to save his own election. It's just not against the law. It may be a political sin, even if it determined the outcome of the election. But, you know, the rule of law requires that when you say something is a crime, show me the statute. Remember the commercial, Show Me the Beef? Show me the statute. There is no statute that would make that a crime. It might be a misdemeanor for the campaign to fail to report that payment, but it would be on the campaign, not on the candidate. So that's not even a close question. And to talk about it as a high crime, a misdemeanor, is absurd. That's not the kind of thing the framers had in mind.
I mean, you would have to have
contribution violations.
They would have to have much more than what Cohen has brought to the table right now to even to think about moving down an impeachment track, right?
They're not going to get close on an impeachment track. They're not going to find a crime at the moment. Now, who knows? Manafort may flip. Cohen may provide other evidence. All I know is based on what Cohen allocated to, and it's very interesting. You mentioned this. It's not in the information, and the U.S. attorney didn't mention it when he went outside. Maybe it's because the U.S. attorney doesn't really believe Cohen. But it doesn't matter whether he believes Cohen, because if Cohen is telling the truth and he was directed to do it and he was compensated for it by the president, as the president suggests, that's just not a crime. The candidate is entitled to contribute $1 million to his own campaign as long as he reports it.